Today on The Big Story, more than $1 billion will be needed to speed up plans to triple the cycling path network in Singapore, said Senior Minister of State for Transport Lam Pin Min in Parliament. Breaking his silence over the 1MDB scandal, fugitive Malaysian financier Jho Low told the Straits Times in an exclusive interview that he is a scapegoat. The highlights, winners and more at the 77th Golden Globes Awards, which took place today. Stay on to find out what went down. A very good Monday evening to all of you. You're watching The Big Story, where we will discuss the hottest topic of the day and explain why it matters. I'm Haryanto Diman, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. More than $1 billion will be needed to speed up and complete plans to triple Singapore's cycling path network. This figure was revealed by Senior Minister of State for Transport Lam Pin Min in Parliament today. The plans come on at the back of the recent e-scooter ban on footpaths. The Ministry of Transport is now in talks with the Finance Ministry to get the funds to complete plans to extend the cycling path network in Singapore to about 1,300 kilometres.
We had previously announced a plan to extend the network of cycling paths from 440 kilometres to 750 kilometres by 2025 and 1,300 kilometres by 2030. We will accelerate the pace of implementation by a few years. We are discussing with HDB, NParks and the local town councils on a practical timeline. We are also discussing with our Ministry of Finance colleagues to secure additional funding for this purpose.
More details on the funding will be announced during the debate on the new budget for the Transport Ministry. Mr. Lam also added that since the ban on the use of e-scooters on footpaths, accidents involving the device have dropped by about 30%. To discuss more on this, we have journalist To Ting Wei. Welcome, Ting Wei. Ting Wei, if we could just start off by telling us, what will the funds be used for?
So basically, the government had announced last time that they wanted to triple the cycling network from 440 km now to about 1,300 km by 2030.
Right.
So what they are doing now is to revise the entire timeline. So today, Dr. Lam committed in Parliament to bring it forward by a few years. So a few years is not very. It's quite vague, but then, it sounds quite significant. So they don't really have a specific breakdown of how they want to spend the money yet, but then I imagine quite a lot of money will be needed to put out contracts over the next few years to try to achieve an earlier deadline, to convert like maybe some road space into cycling paths and also to convert some footpaths into shared paths.
Right. And Ting Wei, how has the situation been on the ground since the ban was implemented, and of course with the zero tolerance policy kicking in as well since New Year's Day?
Yeah, so I think after the new zero tolerance stance kick in, I think probably anecdotally and based on the numbers wise, the number of people caught riding on footpaths and also what you can see on footpaths, it seems to have dropped significantly.
Yeah.
So what was revealed in Parliament today was that people have said that since they announced the ban, there was a 30% drop in the rate of accidents involving e-scooters. And also for a survey conducted by REACH, the government's feedback unit, it found that 2 in 3 people thought that footpaths were safer now as compared to before the ban. So for this week so far, LTA said that they've detected 24 cases of people riding on footpaths. So for that one, I guess the interesting thing is that during their overnight operations from Friday night to Saturday morning, they caught 16 people within that time span, as opposed to 8 in the 3 or 4 days before. So I think it's that now in the day, we don't really see that many e-scooters on footpaths before, but it seems like at night, maybe more of them are coming out. So that's
they're a bit bolder at night, I suppose, probably thinking that they could avoid the enforcement officers, right?
Yeah, correct.
Ting Wei, let's now focus on the food delivery riders. What about on the food delivery riders front? They are the most affected by the ban, right? How is the situation looking for them now?
So for the numbers today, again, that came out in Parliament, so a total of around 6,100 food delivery riders are eligible to tap into the 7 million trade-in grant that the government has set up with food delivery companies. So in a nutshell, this grant gives them about $1,000 up to $1,000 to trade into e-scooters or bicycles or PMAs.
Right.
So about almost 60% of them have applied for the grant so far, and 20% of these applicants have gotten the devices. Because most of them actually, like about 75%, they have applied to switch to e-bikes.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of e-bikes in Singapore at the moment, so there's a shortage. So for them, they are waiting for their devices. So only 20% out of the 3,000 plus that have applied have gotten their new devices. So I guess for those who have chose to continue and have applied for the grant, good news for them because it's approved, just that now they need to wait for their e-bikes. But the interesting thing is for those, the remaining 40% who haven't applied for the grants, it will be interesting to see where they go to, like whether they have switched to new jobs or whether they are still riding their e-scooters.
Right. I guess more still needs to be done to kind of like find out, right, with these 40%.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tingwei, for coming onto the show to share with us more on what transpired in Parliament earlier on. To read more on this, you can check out our website, straitstimes.com. Moving on, a long silence finally broken. In an exclusive interview with the Straits Times, we have fugitive Malaysian financier Jho Low or Jho Low said he's a scapegoat over the 1MDB scandal. Now, Jho Low, who is at the heart of the 1MDB or One Malaysia Development Berhad scandal, also said that other parties should share responsibility for the global financial swindle. In an email interview, Jho Low said he was just a middleman and was made a target to shift the blame away from others who played far bigger roles in the 1MDB scandal. Low described himself as an introducer and intermediary who was sought after because of his strong ties to influential foreign businessmen and decision makers. While asserting his innocence, Low did not explain how he amassed his great wealth nor the mastermind behind the scandal. Low said he was offered asylum by a country in August last year, but would not disclose the location, as he understands it to be a country in Europe. We have our colleague, regional correspondent Leslie Lopez live on Skype right now, who had the interview with Jho Low. Hi, Leslie.
Hi. Hi, John.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Leslie, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing? Good as well?
Good.
Well,
Thanks.
Leslie, let's start off with, Jho Low has kept mum for nearly 4 years now, not giving any interviews about the 1MDB scandal. If you could tell us, how did you manage to get this exclusive?
Well, I've been tracking this story for a very long time now. And since this guy's been incommunicado, the only way to reach out was through his legal and media teams. So the past year, I've been reaching out to these teams, arguing that his client should offer his side of the story. Reason being, there's so much interest in this, and getting to speak to Jho Low would be, big story for the paper.
Yeah.
It seems to me now that he and his team warmed up to the idea sometime in late October after their settlement with the DOJ on the asset forfeiture suits. Like we noted in our piece, his comments are bound to be viewed with skepticism, and I think that's not going to change. But this is, I feel, a fairly important development in this story because of the settlement he's reached with the DOJ and his role in other matters such as the campaign by the US regulators against Goldman Sachs.
Let's now move on to what was said in the interview. It was an email interview. What did he say in the email interview, and how did you confirm that it was Jho Low speaking in the email?
Okay, well, like you said, it wasn't a face-to-face. The legal and media teams only agreed to responding to questions that I submitted.
Yeah.
So, in a situation like this, it doesn't provide any room for follow-up questions, any person's response. So you're really stuck with whatever is said. I'm not surprised by his responses, especially from someone who's been professing that he did nothing wrong since the beginning, but arguing that he was an intermediary, a person of influence. He never held any official position, and that others were more to blame. But this is a stand that he's taken from the start, and which hasn't convinced many people or anyone.
Right.
I think this will remain the same. I think this will remain the same. As for confirming the story, we actually, it was a concern. We did get the confirmation from his personal lawyer, Robin Rathmill, that the words that Jho Low provided to the Straits Times were his accurate words. Also, I think that we had the comfort that I don't think the DOJ would negotiate with someone who doesn't exist.
Yeah, right. Now, Leslie, of course, the Malaysian authorities have also been hot on his heels for a while now, but still to no avail. How has he managed to remain undetected and not caught?
I mean, that's a really good question, and I really don't know. And like I said, he's been incommunicado, and the only way has been by dealing with his legal and media teams.
Yeah.
It's something that I think only the authorities can respond to. But I guess we're not stopping. I think getting a face-to-face interview is something that we will like to pursue. But for now, we'll just have to settle with the Q&A.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting really to see how this will pan out eventually. Like you said, it's good that we have a lead-in with the email interview, and moving forward, we'll see how that is going to take us, or where that's going to take us to as well. Well, thank you so much, Leslie, for spending some time with us to share more on this. Now, to read more on the Jho Low story, you can head on to our website, straitstimes.com. And now let's move on to What's Trending, where Rachel will share with us what's buzzing in the internetverse. Over to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Haryanto. It's time for What's Trending. Short-term relief for Australia as it continues to fight one of its worst bushfire seasons in the form of sooty rain and cooler temperatures. But experts also say that the rain can also hinder firefighting efforts, making it harder for heavy machinery to put in control lines to stop the fire from spreading. And officials say that temperatures would rise by Thursday and huge fires in Victoria and New South Wales could meet to create an even larger mega blaze. Next, Thailand's new ban on plastic bags has shoppers coming up with creative alternatives. Some customers have taken to social media to share their ways to carry groceries. How about a wheelbarrow or a rice sack? If that doesn't cut it, there are always laundry baskets. And finally, how is your new year panning out? Trending on Insta Stories now, this Instagram filter predicts how your year will turn out. Apparently, Vanessa Hudgens will be watching Netflix. It's a virtual roulette using AR technology. Other fun filters for the new year trending on Instagram. Find out your inner Disney character, or Pokemon, or even Harry Potter. And that's all we have for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, link it in the comment section down below. Back to you, Haryanto.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Now, I really hope if I were to try the Harry Potter one, I'll get Harry Potter. I mean, after all, I'm Haryanto. Now, moving on to our last segment, the 77th Golden Globes Awards ceremony concluded this morning with some big winners who went home happy. Now, aside from honouring the best in television and film, politics also took centre stage at the award show with presenters and winners talking about the raging bushfires in Australia and the need to address the climate crisis, possible war with Iran and the 2020 US presidential election. And making Golden Globes history are Asian artists. Awkwafina is the first Asian American to win a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a musical or comedy film for a starring role in The Farewell. Bong Joon-ho's Parasite is the first Korean movie to win Best Foreign Language Film in the 77-year history of the awards. The awards also saw big winners, including Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, which won 3 awards, and War Movie 1917, which clinched Best Motion Picture for Drama. Renee Zellweger won Best Actress for Judy, and Joaquin Phoenix beat out Adam Driver and Christian Bale to win Best Actor for Joker. While it seemed streaming platforms were set to dominate, the biggest surprise of the show belongs to Netflix, which only bagged 2 awards from a total of 34 nominations. We have journalist Jan Lee in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Jan. Now, Jan, let's start off with the Asian wins, right? We have Awkwafina and Bong Joon-ho. Now, how significant are these wins? Prospects are bright for Awkwafina and Bong at Oscars?
I think for Awkwafina, it's clearly a very significant win. She's the first Asian American, possibly I think the first woman of Asian descent to win in a lead actress film category at the Globes. And I mean, nobody really talked about her like 3 years ago. I think she has been working as a rapper, singing, acting a little bit here and there. But I think most people really know her from Ocean's 8, which was released like mid-2018.
Yeah.
So this is 1.5 years, you know, that she just is a meteoric rise. You know, she was in Crazy Rich Asians,
Yep.
The Farewell, now she's going to be Marvel. So major congratulations. Her prospects at the Oscars are not great in the sense that so The Farewell is fronted by A24, which is an independent studio in Hollywood. It doesn't really have the sort of money to like mount a full-on Oscar campaign, and that performance is the kind of performance is very quiet and not really the kind that the Academy likes to reward. And Renee plays Judy Garland, and Hollywood loves their own stories.
Okay.
So for Bong Joon-ho, though, a significant win for South Korea. It's the very first South Korean film to win Best Foreign Film at the Globes. And there is, like, the only foreign film dominating this award season is Parasite, which is brilliant film. And there is a good conversation for Parasite as a Best Picture contender at the Oscars and not just Best Foreign Film. But no foreign film has ever won the Best Picture Oscars. The bias is real. People see subtitles, they don't want to watch. It's real. So that's a hurdle he has to cross. But regardless, I think definitely he will pick up the Best Foreign Film at the Oscars.
And you know, Jen, still on the win, if you could share with us, you know, who are some of the biggest winners? And on that note, also surprises for you, especially, you know, with Netflix, right?
Yes.
It has been said this time round it's going to be the year where streaming platforms are going to dominate, you know, leading the way with 34 nominations, but going home with only 2 awards.
So biggest winners, actually maybe the UK. A lot of the winners were British, so like British Invasion over again. But I think the film side, I would say 1917, which is a war movie that hasn't really come out in Singapore yet, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was the Quentin Tarantino film, were quite big winners. Both took Best Pictures in their respective categories. So 1917 for Best Picture, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for musical or comedy category. Then Brad Pitt won supporting, and you know, so Sam Mendes won director. But Netflix really was like a big loser because it was very nominated. When you consider how nominated it was, and they were really pushing it. They had Martin Scorsese like direct The Irishman, which is 3.5 hours long, so I haven't got to watch it yet. And Marriage Story, they were really pushing Marriage Story, the leads, especially Adam Driver, who still has a very, very good shot at the Oscars, I think. And Dolomite Is My Name, Eddie Murphy, but they came away with like 1 win for Laura Dern and 1 win for Oliver Coleman for The Crown, which isn't even in the film category. I think Netflix is really trying to position itself as a maker of good films, but we're not sure whether that is a hurdle, like the Netflix hurdle, the streaming hurdle. It's a hurdle for voters.
Okay.
So it is a problem. I think surprises. I think Taron Egerton was a surprise because. You know, all throughout award season, he wasn't really in the conversation. He's not considered to be a contender for the Oscars at all.
Right.
But because the Globes has a musical comedy category, that's why I think he was nominated this time.
And this is for Rocketman, right?
For Rocketman, for playing Elton John.
Elton John, yeah.
And he clearly looked very surprised, and it was quite sweet and very charming. And again, British. So Welsh, actually, if I'm not wrong. So. That was quite a surprising win. He's not going to go for the Oscars, but it was very nice to see him.
Right. Now, Jen, there's this talk, right, about Golden Globes considered like a teaser of sorts to the Emmys and, of course, the Oscars. Right? We talked about this. Does it really give a good inkling of what's to come? I mean, Oscar is going to happen less than a month away, right?
Yeah, in about 2 weeks. Yeah. So the short answer is not really.
Okay.
Sorry, did I just say the Oscars was happening in 2 weeks? I don't know.
No, yes, less than a month, Feb 9.
The short answer is not really, because the Hollywood Foreign Press, which is the jury that votes for the Golden Globes, is very weird. It's very unpredictable, very weird. It's very small. There's only about 90 people on the voting body.
Yep.
As compared to the Oscars, which has like 8,000 active members. So of course that's a totally 2 different groups. And the Hollywood Foreign Press is notoriously weird. They are like a group of journalists from all around the world, and they are notoriously celebrity obsessed. So they will nominate people that they want to meet. and then they can take photos at the party. That's sort of the running joke with the HFPA. So that's a bit, they're not really seen as the authoritative voice on who's going to get the Oscars or not. But on the other hand, though, the Oscars, the voting for nominations close on Jan 7, which is 2 days after the Globes. So if you have like a picture that really dominates the Golden Globes, or if you have a winner that goes up and gives a wonderful, great speech, that could really boost your visibility, I think, to Academy voters. So it could up your chances of getting a nomination, but maybe not like a win, you know. On the Emmy side, though, I think the Golden Globes, on TV side, the Golden Globes tends to be, because it's like, it takes place in January, and then the Emmys like takes place a lot later. So they like to be the first one to discover shows. They like to be the first one to nominate. For example, this time around, they were the first to nominate on Becoming a God in Central Florida, Kirsten Dunst. So they like to be the one to like, hey, look at this award-worthy show that we first nominated, and to like win over the Emmys. That's sort of their thing. So I think it has a little bit more influence over the TV side, but not so much on the film side, because they're notoriously very weird.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for that candid sharing. At least, we kind of understand a bit more, of the whole landscape with Grammys, with the Emmys, the Oscars, and of course the Golden Globes that happened this morning. Now, for more on the Golden Globes 2020, and of course to know the full list of winners, you can visit the Straits Times website. There we have it, our top stories for today. For more news and videos, log on to straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto. See you tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.